design that I consider to be a nostalgia design. This is a record player, and it has an Albus Sun Records vinyl that's going around on it that spins. The little arm on the record player moves in and out as well. And then just to give it a little bit of an over-the-top glam element, I have a piece of sheet music that is a clear piece of gel polish that's got just random music notes written across it that's sort of like twirling around the nail. I kind of wanted it to look almost like the music was playing and there was just this frenzy of sound. I hope you guys love it as much as I do, and don't forget to click subscribe to get my future videos as well. Bye!
So we're going to begin by just creating an overlay of a a cover pink acrylic. So basically just a background that's going to somewhat disappear. If you wanted it to be clear instead of cover pink, you can go with that. Otherwise, white would be fine. Just any color that would kind of disappear. Otherwise, if you wanted to do it a different way, my other recommendation would be to know what kind of record you're going to be doing. So like for instance, like I did the Sun Records, you could do a yellow. Or if you're doing, do a complementary color to whatever color record you're doing. So now on a nail form backing, now that our nail is all filed and beautiful and set to the side, we can start sculpting the base for the actual record player. So after you sculpt a rectangle with any kind of acrylic you want, I just went with almost like a wood color, you're going to place 2 pieces of wire into that. One, if you imagine the left side of your record player is a square, in the middle of the square, so if you like cut off the end, if you can just visualize that, hopefully, maybe. And then the other one in that little skinny part that you imaginarily cut off in the upper corner. Once you have those little pieces stuck in there, add a second layer of that acrylic over the whole thing around the wires so that you really stick them in place. It's slightly awkward to be sculpting around them. And if you'd rather just sculpt a bigger, thicker rectangle to start with, so you didn't have to sculpt around them, you just have to really reinforce the areas that they are. I personally don't always do things the easy way, so I went with this route instead. After you have it where it's pretty much perfected and you're happy with the shape, it does not have to be perfect. Don't worry about perfection. Just, passable is basically our goal at this particular stage. Next to that, you can sculpt your record. And apparently precision was just not in my cards that night. And so my record ended up way bigger than I really needed it to. And that's fine. Just make sure you have a nice reasonably sized hole in the middle of it. It can be too big. We can trim it with the scissors because it is so thin. Thin is more important than perfectly sized and shaped at this point for the record. And then you can go and you can sculpt the 2 little bits that are going to be needed for the arm of the record player. One is just a circle. You want it to be relatively small. It's going to be just a topper to hide the wire. And then the second one is where the end of the arm actually, where the thing touches down onto the record. So it's a little T shape, or it almost looks like an upside down mushroom. Once you are done with that, we're going to just grab our little disc and we're going to just cut it. Like I said, it was way too big to start with, so I'm going to trim it down with my manicure scissors. If your acrylic does not want to trim with a manicure scissors, it kind of depends on the brand. I find that if it's thin enough, just about any will trim with a manicure scissors. But if you were worried about that at all, before you let it fully cure on your nail form backing, if you would have taken a dotting tool and just drawn a circle and just sort of like marked the acrylic, it would snap right off right where you marked it. Once you have that trimmed, file both the vinyl, and you're going to want to file the record player to straighten up those edges. Like I said, they weren't perfect before, which is a-okay, because I would file them even if they looked close to perfect, just to really sharpen them a little bit. And then once you're having both of those filed, put the disc on there to make sure it fits before you move on, just in case you have to adjust anything else. And then you can attach your record player to the nail with a little bit of clear acrylic or nail glue. Either way, I would probably go through and add just a little bit of acrylic underneath it on the sides to make sure it wasn't going anywhere. And then you're going to set your record on top of the piece of wire in the middle of the square area. Cut off any extra, take a bit of black acrylic and cap that off. If you want your record to be interchangeable, where you can have different discs, where you can, take one vinyl off and put a different one on, do not cap it off. Leave that off, and you can make as many of those black circles for discs as as your heart desires. And then we're going to make our little arm. So take another piece of wire and bend it just at a slight angle so that it kind of curves in. Cut off the wire on one side and then hold it up again. Grab a permanent marker. Any color is fine as long as it shows up, and mark where it meets the wire that's in the record player, and then just past it. And the mark just past it, cut it off, and then lay this piece of wire on your nail form backing, and on the blue mark that is where it touched or where it met up with that wire, you're going to sculpt a little bridge up and over it. And then on the inside of your wire, on the inside edge where it's going to be going over that wire post, you're going to sculpt a nice big circle, or a reasonably big circle, not huge, and just let that sit up for a second, and then take a dotting tool or a piece of wire or something, and you're going to make a hole in the middle of it. Make sure the hole that you're making is big enough that you will easily be able to slip that over the wire without any issues. Attach the little T-shape to the other end, And then on the end that is next to your circle, just sculpt a little cap, a little end on it. Doesn't have to be anything too fancy. Let that set up on your piece of nail form backing, and then once you're happy with it, you can slide that over your wire post. You can make sure it moves back and forth easily, and then once it does, which you shouldn't have any issues as long as that hole in the circle is big enough, cut off the extra wire, and then you're going to put just a little bit of acrylic on there, and then that cap, that circular cap you made before, right on top, hold that in place until it sets up. And then once you're done with that, I'm going to secure it with just a little bit more clear acrylic, which is basically my mantra for life. A little more clear acrylic, a little bit more security. It's one of those things that once you kind of get in the habit of doing, you catch yourself securing things or adding just a little bit more here or there all the time. But once you've got all of your little bits sculpted, now we can go through and we can actually do some decorating on this. This is where the fun comes in. If you felt like it would be easier to decorate the vinyl off of the record player, you certainly could have done that. If you're like me and you kind of want to get like all of one stage done, where you want to do all the acrylic done and then get all of this part, then all of that part, you can do it my way too. Whatever works for you. And like I said before, if you're planning to do this with more than one disc option, then you would have other ones to the side and you just won't make it so that they were permanently on there. I'm just doing one so it can be permanently attached. And add all of the details you want to this. Obviously, there are different, modernized record players that are going to have different things. You can, there's fancier ones, there's less fancy ones, etc., etc. So you can kind of have fun with it and make it your own as far as the little like side accoutrements go. And as far as your disc goes, choose either, obviously make it something that means something to you as far as what artist, what album you're doing. Things that personally come to my mind that would be fun is if you are, maybe it's the first vinyl record you owned, maybe it's your favorite song. There's so many options. I went just generic Elvis Sun records because my great aunt is the biggest Elvis fan I have ever met. So this is a tribute to her. And I honestly do not know what her favorite Elvis song is. I know that there's, like I said, just the biggest Elvis fan. She goes to all these Elvis Explosion, like lookalike contests and everything, and she just eats it all up. So this was, like I said, a little tribute to her, and I wanted to keep it generic Elvis just because I didn't know for sure. So with brown paint, I'm going to be writing Sun on the top part of the little inner yellow circle, and then underneath that I will write Elvis. And to give it kind of that textured disc look, I just added a few little gray lines, skinny little gray lines on the outside of the label. Fill in the SUN with skinny lines of yellow, so it almost looks like a brown outline of the letters. And then underneath that, just writing Elvis. And there's so many beautiful labels that you can look at and find, and there's so many different options. If you really wanted to go detailed, I know a lot of labels are going to have like the artist's face on them or something really crazy, and you could do some really beautiful artwork on there if you so desire. I'm going to apply some gel sealer over the background, some 3D glaze over the vinyl and over a couple of the little bits on the side of the record player, and then on a silicone mat I added one coat of a gel top coat, and then after that's been cured, I'm going to take black gel paint that does not require a top coat because it cures without an inhibition layer, and I'm going to be painting my sheet music. If you use any kind of a gel product that does require top coat, you are going to have to add another layer on top of this. However, if you have one that doesn't require a top coat over it, I'm using Madam Glam's gel paint for that, and for that specific reason, so that it doesn't require the top coat. It's going to make it so you don't have to do quite as many coats of gel, all together, which is going to keep this more flexible, and it's just less product that you're using and wasting, if you will. So it just makes it a little thinner and a little faster to be working on. And as far as your music goes, if you are doing a specific song, whether it's for personal reasons, you like the way that, the label looks, whatever it is, if you wanted to take this the extra mile, you can just look up sheet music for almost any song out there. And so you just type in whatever the song is, the artist name, and sheet music, and you can get it. You can get it where you can read it, and you could replicate it so that it's actually the song that you did it. That would just be so much fun. Since mine wasn't a specific song, I completely made up my music notes. It was just whatever seemed to come to my mind. I just made dots and then filled them in. But if you wanted to be just, a little bit extra, that would be a fun thing. And nobody would know but you, but it would just be one of those little fun tidbits. After it's all done and cured, you can peel it off of your silicone mat, trim the edges so that they're nice and crisp. And then once they're all done, then you can start attaching them to the nail. If this were a stiletto nail, the way I would have done it is I would have wrapped it around the point of the nail. Since this isn't a stiletto nail, it's a square, I'm going to kind of just sort of float it in and around the record player, almost like a frenzy of music that's just kind of taking over the nail. It's very flamboyant, it's very over the top, it's very kind of just extra looking. If you wanted it to be more wearable, you could have just painted sheet music, the music notes around the record player, or simplified it a little bit. I personally like to do things over the top and crazy just in general, so this is the route I took, evidently. But however you like to do it, I know this way is not super wearable. Not that the little 4D record player is wearable either, but just options if you were looking for options. Going to flash cure each time I set that little bit of sheet music in place so that it stays while I'm working on it. Once I have all of the spots sort of kind of cured down, tacked down, I'm going to put this into my lamp to fully cure so that all of that gel is completely stuck. And then once that is done, flash cured in place, and it's all been cured, it's all done. I love this one. Like I said, it was a tribute to my great aunt and her love of Elvis. There's so many fun options that you could switch these up. I know a lot of artists are releasing vinyl records again. I have a client who has all of the Billie Eilish vinyls, and she didn't have a record player. She just was hanging them up and using them as decor. That's certainly something that I think is really prevalent lately. If you are a vinyl lover, I hope you love this too, and don't forget to click subscribe to all my future videos as well. Bye!